Call this meeting to order of the Shelburne School Board. We have one adjustment to the agenda where we're going to schedule a special meeting in 2 weeks to talk about the architect's contract and one other thing. What was that?
Construction management selection.
Construction management selection, yes. So that's going to be part of our next meetings, and that will be in section 9. Does anybody have any other adjustments to the agenda? Okay. And I assume David's here for facilities, and you folks are here for...
Alan and Jude.
Alan and Jude are here for the presentation, so I assume there's no audience and communications. So we'll go on to our presentations on PE.
All right, so I don't know if everybody knows Alan Myhan and Jude Olson. Okay, they're here representing our PE department. Also, we've got a little bit of, Jason Lewis couldn't be here tonight, but you've got some information from Jason, and I've got a little bit from Rachel Oberst, who leads our unified sports. So, turn over you, I will drive things if you want. How would you like, do you want me to? Come right up to the table, I think is probably the best. Come up right there. It's a nice family atmosphere.
You don't bite too badly?
No, but I'm sitting next to him, he's got the pizza.
All right.
Well, thank you for having us. Yeah.
Are you?
Oh, nice catch.
Ooh, that was a good save. Nice.
There's a basketball coach and those reflexes.
Oh,
Shall we start with phys ed or start with athletics?
yeah, let's start with,
this.
Okay, Jason Lewis is our eloquent speaker
Yes.
to the new physical education concepts. So I am going to try to paraphrase what he would say and read what he wrote. As you know, physical education, as well as many of the other areas in the building, are making paradigm shifts and philosophical changes to align ourselves in with the new PLPs and standard-based education and learning targets and all those new buzzwords that is truly becoming an exciting part of our school. So how physical education rolls into that starts with something in our eyes that started with the Common Core standards. You know, those wonderful Common Core standards that we were talking about, and the idea that literacy spans all of learning. Well, the physical education people nationwide, through what used to be our organization of Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance, is now called SHAPE America. And they took the lead on talking about the concept that literacy is not just the written word.
Right.
Literacy is the way a person perceives and reacts to an environment, whether it be reading a book or writing a report or playing on a playing field.
or a makerspace or something like that.
So they've talked about the concept of physical literacy and what that means to us and how it rolls into the Common Core standards and how it's now beginning to roll into our way of thinking about standards-based education. So Alan's going to play a very quick, it's 3 minutes, it's very simple, it's animated, but it talks a little bit about what physical literacy and health literacy mean.
So, I'm sure you understand that it's important to be physically active and healthy. It's a pretty obvious thing to say, isn't it? Like saying you'd rather live on land than underwater, or you'd rather call your friends than fax them. But just how important is being active and healthy? Well, let's look. In the entire world, physical inactivity is the 4th leading risk factor for mortality, behind high blood pressure, tobacco use, and high blood sugar. Physical inactivity is the main cause for about 1/4 of all deaths caused by breast and colon cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. Now, people aged 5 to 17 should accumulate 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity in a day. But currently, only 7% of youth are getting the recommended amount of physical activity. We have a similar problem when we examine healthy living. Less than half of children and youth are getting the recommended number of servings of fruit and vegetable daily. Without change, these children will have lifespans that are 3 to 4 years shorter than today's adults due to obesity. So, it's clearly very important to be physically active and healthy, and to work towards getting better at it. But here's the problem. Before you can make changes and get to a position where you're physically active and making healthy decisions, you've got to learn something called health and physical literacy. What's that, you ask? Health literacy is the ability to develop critical thinking skills to make good decisions about your health. Physical literacy is the ability to move with competence and confidence in a wide variety of physical activities. It's like this. Say you want to drive a car. You don't just hop in the seat and start zipping around. You've got some basic skills to learn first. Steering, stopping, parallel parking. Okay, maybe you still can't parallel park. The point is you have to learn the basic skills and strategies before you can drive. Your health is the same way. Let's take physical literacy. To feel comfortable and confident being physically active, and therefore more likely to be regularly active, you need to learn fundamental movement skills like how to dodge, hop, skip, jump, kick, and overhand throw. Once you're comfortable and confident with these skills, you can start to apply various strategies in physical activities. For example, when playing sledge hockey, you may be playing defense, so learning to defend a space will be a very useful strategy. This applies to hockey and basketball too. When you play bocce or wheelchair curling, avoiding obstacles will help you to score points, and learning aim and accuracy helps with highlight and squash. It's the same if you want to be healthy. To be health literate, you have to learn basic critical and creative thinking skills like planning, processing, drawing conclusions, and reflecting. Through these, you develop the ability to make healthy choices like eating well, avoiding smoking, and making good decisions about your emotional well-being. Making good choices isn't like flipping on a switch. We learn how to do it. Health and physical literacy get you to a place where you're competent and confident in physical activities and making healthy, smart choices about your life. This will help you get better grades, make friends, and just generally make you a happier, healthier person.
Thank you. Now comes the part where I wish Jason was here,
Yeah.
because he speaks very well to this. So he gave me some notes to go over, and what I thought I'd do is, it's written so well, I'm just going to read it to you. Physical literacy is the overreaching concept which makes proficiency standards-based physical education effective for all students. And those are some of the words that we're now using all the time, proficiency-based and standards-based education. These standards are broad in scope, and we unpack them. The learning targets guide the lessons and highlight in a concrete way the skills, concepts, and applications of these in a way that allow the students to become invested in their learning. A lot of what we're beginning to think about is how do we make physical activity to be on a more personal level with kids, as opposed to having 27 or 28 in a class. How do we make it more effective so what the individual needs are being met? He goes on to say, the trick is to note the needs, learning styles, and interest of the individual students as they work towards the learning targets. It is at this point that the concept of physical literacy becomes a powerful guide for the educator. It is too easy to get caught up in the minutia of skill acquisition and lose sight of what we as teachers enable students to become: lifelong activity and healthy individuals. The goal of physical literacy is for each student can prevent this restricted view. I'm not quite sure what that means. That's okay. It also inspires our thinking and teaching as we consider adaptive needs for all students. So it really is beginning to take a look at kids as an individual. And how we go about doing that, we're beginning to understand what personal learning plans are. We're starting to learn about what Google Classroom is. We're starting to learn about what Naviance is. We're starting to learn more about what Tarrant Institute can provide for us. So it's going to be interesting to see how physical education really rolls along with this. ball that is now,
Exactly, brave
that
new
is out
PE
there.
world.
It is a
Without
brave new
question.
PE world.
It's not- Throw a ball out there and make them run.
Yeah, yeah. So that's sort of where we're heading, I think, as a department. It's a pretty big, it's not that it's a big shift in what we normally do, but it's an interesting shift on how we look at
Organize our.
what we do and how we organize what we do. So that's a little bit about what physical education is. I'll do questions before or after everything else, or?
I think probably take it in shifts if there's questions right now related
Okay.
to kind of your intro piece before we talk, because you also want to talk about your athletic.
Yep, we also want to talk about athletics, yeah.
Sounds good. You know, it's funny because, you know, I'm a huge fan of standards-based education, and this is one of those areas where I feel like, are we slightly putting the round peg in the square hole a little bit? Yeah, you know, because at the end of the day, physical activities, you know, we all need to work on our cores and things like that, but it's part of developing a love for physical activity is just finding something you love. And, you know, I always think, you know, what the best exercise that I get is ones when I don't think it's exercise. You know, skiing, playing hockey, who knows, whatever it is.
Yep.
Or you come at the end of the day and you're dog tired. And so, you know, my only sort of concern about the approach is whether we're some ways overthinking it, which isn't what you're intending to do in any way. It's just, you know, it's one of those fine lines where you draw that. But yeah, I get it. It's good, you know, good thinking. We'll sort out what the right answer is, I'm sure.
Sure, yeah, and it's a learning curve.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm
and
sure.
we're on the bottom right now of that learning curve, working our way
Yeah.
up.
And we dipped our toe into it this fall with the jump rope assessment, right? We dipped our toe into.
Yeah.
To that piece also.
Yeah.
What does that mean, Jude? Just in terms of the board, can I kind of understand where jump rope intersects with PE for you?
Well, the Shelburne, as you know, taking on the jump rope type assessment, the first school in the CSSU.
Okay, so the noun jump rope, not the verb.
Oh,
jump
I'm,
rope.
oh,
The
I'm sorry.
CSSU jump rope,
I'm sorry.
or the
Jump rope.
CVU jump rope, is jump rope.
Sorry. Jump rope is the title of a, I don't want to say type of assessment, it's a.
It's the
brand name-
it's the database collection
Right, yeah.
system.
Standards-based reporting
Yeah,
system.
yeah.
And Shelburne
Yeah.
is the first K-8 school this fall that has implemented it. So we, as a PE department, dipped our toe into it this fall, because it's a huge undertaking to try to pull off in a fall semester. So we just started with little pieces of evaluating out to folks on small pieces.
And the pieces that we evaluated on our PE department, CSSU wide, for the last, oh gosh, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 years, have been working on common assessments that are given at specific grade levels in all of the sending schools to the high school. So that we know that a kid that comes out of Williston, a kid that comes out of Shelburne, a kid that comes out of Charlotte and Heinsberg, all have had the same assessments given to them. So what we did is we took those assessments and rolled them into this first go-around of reporting out on a
Standards-type.
standards-based role. So it was work that had already been done, it was just
Organized
redesigning it
a little differently.
a little bit differently.
It sounds like the standards-based, personalized aspect of this is something completely different from when we were going to school. I have to be careful about when we go to school, because I don't want to
think-
accuse Matt of being as old as I am. But you know, I think,
It's not dodgeball and wrestling anymore.
yeah, I know, exactly, you know, and not
is what
every
I am.
kid has to do the same type of activities when they come out, it sounds like some kids are good at running, some kids are good
Correct.
at playing soccer, some kids are good at playing basketball, and they can be all evaluated equally in different skill sets. Is that what personalized means?
I think in some ways, yes. I think in some ways too, we haven't necessarily defined what it all means yet.
But we all, you know, we want,
Um,
especially at the K-5 level, we still want them all to have a lot of the same experiences.
Okay.
Because they're still tasting what do they like to do,
Yeah.
you know? They're still trying to figure out, you know, what they, you know, do they rather like to climb, or do they rather play hockey or a team sport? Are they an individualized sport child, or do they like a team sport, you know?
Yeah.
They're still trying to taste their way through that. So we don't, you know, we still would like to give them a lot of different opportunities. But, you know, the bottom line is, you know, at the end of the day, at the end of 8th grade, or at the end, they graduate here at CBU, is that that it's part of their thinking of taking care of themselves.
And making healthy choices.
Because in this, you know, in the world that we live in today with technology, you know, if any of you have teenagers or adolescents at home, you know, it's what they do, you know? And it's not, it's not great.
The biggest pressures on the system is recognizing that the system that we came through wasn't necessarily successful in moving American society to appreciation of physical activity. And so if we look at that, you know, we know there's a reality of young people graduating who are not physically active, do not appreciate physical activity, and don't have, you know, a conscious knowledge that,
Right.
boy, this body I've got to take care of. And so it's asking ourselves, we may not know how, but we know that what we've done educationally hasn't been incredibly successful. So what can we do for those students that, you know, some students, you know, we see them at CVU, you've got that percentage that just, they get it. They get the nutrition, they get the, but there's also a pretty sizable population. We look and say, how can we set them up differently, and what opportunities and what flexible pathways might take them through school?
Yeah, and that makes me wonder, like, you know, is a successful kid in PE coming out who can, you know, run a mile in 9 or 10 minutes, or has a BMI of X, and because, you know, those healthy lifestyles will reduce the load on society of somebody having diabetes or hypertension or something like that. You know, is that the successful graduate of the program, or is it something similar to that? I guess I just wanted to make sure. I know it's an old cliche, I keep saying it, everything's changed from when we were kids, you know. I just wanted to make sure that PE isn't following directions and behaving and learning a bunch of different sports and checking the boxes, and it sounds like things like that are changing.
Yeah, well, and just one of the concrete examples of that is by agreement within CSSU, we give a physical fitness test twice
Right.
a year. And one of the things that I always talk about with the kids is, yeah, somebody's going to go out and run a 6-minute mile. Good for them. But there's also somebody, quite a few of our kids, that if they go out and walk a consistent paced mile and their heart
they're
rate
getting
is
it.
elevated and they're getting good physical benefits of it, good for you. Because that's what you can do right now. That's what makes you feel good about yourself.
And
Not
then-
necessarily running a 6-minute
And then the
mile.
next term, when we
We do a little bit
give the,
more.
and we evaluate them again, they've looked at what they did, and then they can improve upon it, then.
So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of conversation that takes place.
And like the connection of, it's not doing this once a semester. It's like, how does my lifestyle change to walk more, and how do I feel when I walk, or what are the benefits of when I walk
Correct.
more than twice a year?
And then there's not only the physical benefit, but there's, you know, the academic benefit.
And we know
There's-
that research is pretty solid right
Yeah,
now.
Yep, definitely.
yeah. I remember that from the groups doing their big dances before all of their
Before
tests
SBAC,
last spring.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right, standardized tests.
I walked in right before those.
So what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Well, the heart-brain-based research is so solid now that it makes so much sense to be able to get kids to understand that, you know, being physically active does really good things up here, which allows you to learn 2 + 2 easier. So that's another whole.
And we're
huge piece.
consistently finding that some of our most challenging students, you hear us talking about our changing population, that physical activity, if we can teach them to regulate their zones, you know, we talk about being up here in the red zone, And, I'll have kids who will come to my office just to get on my treadmill.
Yeah.
And, and after walking for about 5 minutes, then we can talk. Now we can kind of go, what happened out there? But talking before we get on that treadmill, don't even waste my time. It's like, hey, I'm gonna let you walk and we'll come back.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. We move on to athletics?
Should we move on to athletics?
Yeah.
Well, I'm also the athletic director. Another hat that I wear. We field 15 teams throughout the year. Boys and girls soccer, field hockey, cross country, boys and girls basketball. We now have a club volleyball team, which we will be coming back to you very soon to bring into the fold of our sports program. Just put that little plug in there. Baseball, softball, and for the first time ever, track and field. Track and field for the last 2 years has been a club team, kind of getting our feet wet with it. We've had a wonderful coach who has just taken the reins and just run with it, to kind of make a pun. But so we are going to attempt track and field for the first time this year.
And signups as of the other day, I saw 42.
Oh yeah, it's three pages long. So track and field and cross country are our two most popular sports that we offer.
They're the best ones that we.
I think that says a lot about, the kids and healthy choices and all that other stuff. So I think that's all rolled into there a little bit. Our participation numbers, they average between 2011 and 2016 about 232 kids participating
A year.
all year long. Now, that doesn't take into consideration the kid that participates 3 times. But that's total numbers. That's been pretty consistent over the years. I mean, we've had ups and we've had downs, and but that's been pretty consistent. We're seeing slight drops in some of the numbers, and I think that's just due to life's kids are so complicated, going so many different directions, and that's okay. Philosophically, we try to give as many kids an opportunity to play on a team as we possibly can. I think we've been really good about creating an environment where it's the rare situation where we have to cut kids. And really, truly, it's only been in one sport. And really, truly, only half of one sport, which has been boys basketball. Over the last couple of years, anyway. But we've been really, really creative in how to roll kids and teams. And I think for us and our coaches, the most important part is teaching the kids how to be good competitors and good sports. And that's essentially what our philosophy comes down to. And I think we've been pretty successful at that over the course of the years. Coaching has made a huge turn in not only who is coaching our sports, but what is required of them. I'm sure you're all familiar with Act 68, and that's the new concussion law. And the VPA, our Vermont Principals Association, has mandated that all our coaches now, every 2 years, get concussion certified. It's an online course right now through the National Federation of High School Sports. So all of our coaches have to complete this course every 2 years. They also, for Shelburne, and we're the only school in the district that mandates this, they also have to finish a middle school coaching philosophy course given by the same organization. I think it's a really good way of starting to frame what middle school sports can be and maybe should be and what it shouldn't be. And I can tell you honestly, in my 30-some-odd years, we have seen in our schools that we play and people that we come across, we've seen the gamut. We've seen it all. We've seen all sides of it. So our coaches also now have this training. And as of a couple of months ago, actually maybe less than that now, all of our coaches for the fall of 2016 have to be CPR and AED trained. So how we pull that off, I don't know yet, but as of the fall of 2016, they all have to have that training. So you can see that it's,
That you probably can't do online.
actually, yes, you can.
CPR training online?
Yes, actually you can. Actually you can.
Well, you do half of it online, and then you have a little bit
Yeah,
of practice.
yeah. So what that looks like, and there's conversation about what the word trained means, whether it's certified or completing a course, but not necessarily have to be certified in CPR and AED. That's still up for conversation at the VPA.
Just to be a rarer skill set at the middle school level than I would expect with, concussion protocols, very real,
Yeah.
but.
Yep. Getting back to the concussion protocol, just want to let you know that we are in complete compliance with Act 68. We have the action plans in place. We have the return to play protocol in place. We have the return to learn protocol in place. We have the database tracking system in place. So we are in complete compliance with that, which is a lot of work, but it is what it is.
Talk about a changed landscape. I remember the old smelling salt days.
Yep.
Yeah.
How many fingers am I holding
You
up?
have, so that's all
One.
you need.
Okay, good,
Good
go.
go.
You're
Get out
good.
there.
Yeah, and essentially our philosophy on concussions is when in doubt, sit them out. And I have told the coaches, and we actually had a situation in our gym with a visiting coach not long ago where a kid hit their head on the floor, and she sat her down, and 2 minutes later she's up at the scorer's table, and I said, you know what, not in here.
Good.
There's a possibility that this kid has got some kind of head injury, so we are very cautious with it. And knock on wood, so far, we haven't had too many. I've had one trip to the emergency room over the course of the years, thanks to a field hockey stick. But other than that, another thing that we're getting into is an area from the Vermont Principals Association that's called the Cooperative School Agreements. And this is a situation where we offer a sport, a school in our general area may not offer that same sport, and with a cooperative agreement from school to school, we have allowed students to participate on our SCS teams. Last year, this is just last year, we had 2 agreements for field hockey, one with Monte Cristi and one with Charlotte. Now, it's all predicated on numbers. We have the ability to say we don't have the space for them, but if we can, we've been entering into these agreements, and it's been a real positive thing. We had one with cross country, which brought, with the Endeavor School, which brought kids plus an adult coach with them to help with the program. That was a very interesting combination. We had one for boys soccer with the Endeavor School. We've had 2 for baseball, one with the Endeavor School and one with Waldorf. We've had 2 homeschoolers join us, and we have another one in the spring that's going to join us. And I'm anticipating that we enter into some kind of agreement again with the Endeavor School for track and field, because that's sort of one where we can handle numbers. So it's just another way of offering our experience and offering our programs to kids in the area. Basically, for the most part, they've been Shelburne kids, not necessarily all, but an opportunity to get some athletics that they may not have that opportunity at their present school.
Great.
And that is Alan's been great with that, because we've had some very interesting conversations about, okay, we got one, that's enough, we're done, okay, say no, because our numbers fluctuate. But I think it's been a real positive. We've had some really nice interactions with these other schools and kids.
It's actually now led to some students who experience our school, experience our kids,
Yeah.
end up coming and
And
going to Shelburne
yes.
Community
Yes.
School.
Yeah.
Recruiting
Nice.
tool? I wouldn't call it a recruiting tool, but
Well, the one girl I recruited for basketball is going to be a wonderful addition to our school.
Yeah, that's great.
Who came over from Endeavor.
yeah. So I had one other quick sport to show you because Rachel Obers couldn't be here tonight. She's our planning room director and wanted to make sure you knew about this sport. To turn back on again. Let's see, coming back on. Okay. Well, it's, is it flashing?
Yeah, it is blinking, so
So should I,
presumably it's,
what do you think?
I think.
Timed out?
No, there
Oh,
it
you got
goes.
blue.
Yeah, there it
So we
goes.
got blue. So this is Unified Sports. Unified Sports started at Shelburne Community School back in 2010. It's connected with Special Olympics. Was first done on a volunteer basis, and then we rolled it into our SCAP program. And as of last year, it actually became a full-time part of our extracurricular program where we have Rachel Obers coaching on stipend, and we're up to 20 students. It's a mix of students with disabilities and able-bodied students, very intentional. They compete in 3 competitions throughout the year. They have bocce, snowshoeing. They're supposed to have a snowshoeing competition March 4th that we're chasing down in Woodstock
It's
and
not
hoping
gonna
to be able to. And then, is it track and field? What's the third? Bocce's. There's a third competition. I believe it is a running event.
I think it is.
Kind of track and field. And so Rachel just wanted me to share a few shots with you just because it's been fantastic. The words are teamwork, role model, friendship, goals, confidence, leadership, dedication, and fun, if you can't see them. And that's really the intention of it, is as positive a program for our able-bodied student as it is for our students with disability. We see some, as part of our inclusion model, we see some genuine friendships develop that start after school in these practices and then continue in the classroom. And so, that's just a picture kind of showing, this was the humble beginnings of the first team we had in snowshoeing that year that has now grown up to 20 students. And we're really proud of that program. I think it's pretty special. And then it continues here at CVU. They've got some great programs that Jeff could talk about, but it's a great feeder program to continue, and I know these relationships will continue all the way to graduation. So I wanted to highlight that too. Make sure you knew about that as you're out there in the conversations with the community.
I know the kids talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah,
It's been really neat, really neat.
Right. Any other athletic or PE questions for us? Or we achieved our goal of providing you some information for that next time somebody says, budget's tight, cut sports.
I'm good.
All right.
Thanks a lot, guys. Great work.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I should have probably asked at the beginning on agenda adjustments. I didn't know if we wanted to shift Dave Hellman and facilities at all, or if that was possible.
Oh, that's fine, yeah. You wanna
Just, I mean, I
talk
wanna have
facilities
Dave-
first, and then we'll go to the principal's report?
If that's okay.
That's fine.
Yep. Dave, welcome as always.
I do have to say, joining that facilities meeting by Google Hangout was much easier than.
Was it successful?
Oh, it was
You could
totally.
see it, hear it?
I could hear almost everything.
Okay.
If, like, I couldn't quite see all the presentation slides, but
Okay,
that was a,
good.
That saved me a-
spur of the moment. Let me flip around and-
yeah, because it was in the invite, and I was like, oh, I must be able to do it, and then, so, that was
Yeah,
great.
Definitely a possibility. I mean, I think we could easily include.
And if that didn't impact your productivity because you weren't able to work on your computer, that worked.
Yeah,
so-
it really wasn't a problem at all.
Okay.
And it was simple once I got a little Jeff video support on, how do I hook up a Hangout?
Yeah, no. Okay.
So, all right, Dave.
David?
Okay,
Some updates. And
Okay,
I've got that schematic design
yep,
presentation.
that'll be
I can
great.
Walk through it wherever it makes sense.
good. So that'll give them something to look forward to after my little boring talk
There you go.
here.
All right.
So there's actually 4 points that I wanted to talk that I think are important for the board to know where we are progress-wise. And that is, one is, I'll start off with where we are with contracting with Doran Whittier, the process that we're going through with that, the status of that. The other one is where we are with selection for a project manager or owner's project representative. Thirdly, where we are with selection of a construction manager. And then finally, just a few little issues that, are out there that we ought to all be aware of so that we can watch them. So where we are with the contract, this actually started back in like December, and he's in the contracts. There's a sample of the, just pass it around, just a glance. The contract with Dora Whittier is started off with a standard AIA contract agreement. It's called a B-133 when you're actually going to do work with a construction manager, because the contract with the architect and the construction manager is going to actually end up being pretty tightly honed together. So that's why we picked that way of doing it. So that's the starting point. And then if you look through that draft right there, you'll see all kinds of like markups and deletes and adds. Most of the stuff in there in blue is from me. I actually spent a couple of Saturday mornings doing that before the holidays. I didn't do anything to Section 8, which addresses, disputes and claims. That was, the school's legal counsel that took on that part. So anyways, made those markups and then passed them out to review for everybody. Bob, Tim, Doran Whittier, and then we got together maybe a couple of weeks ago, myself, Tim, Bob, Doran Whittier, to actually do a page flip through that and accept, deny, modify some of the markups in there. And my going through this is kind of, like 3 major points. Number one is I want to make sure it's clear in there that the architect is responsible for designing this to come within budget. And there are clauses in there that thou shalt design it to come within budget. Otherwise, you go back and fix it for no charge. And another one, of course, is getting in there, understanding what the architect is responsible for doing and what they're not. And then thirdly, of course, is the fees, the bottom line, where that is. So I think as far as the contract, we're good to go, except for that third one that I just talked about, the fee. Myself, Tim, and Bob have a meeting with Doran Whittier tomorrow to discuss this. So one thing that is kind of normal out there, when you look at architects' fees, you do a comp, like if you're buying a house in the neighborhood. So what did those houses all sell for? And so that'll give me an idea of what that house should sell for. Or if there's any kind of differences, that would explain any differences in fees. So what I did to just kind of, ballpark this and see where their fee was compared to, comps is I took projects done at the hospital and took architect engineering fees, computed that percentage to actual construction costs, and come up with a range of, could be anywhere from 8% to 12% of construction cost. And that variance is based on actually what the product is, the kind of construction. Is it a small product, is it a big product? So there's a range there. Then secondly, I went out and did kind of, I don't know how applicable hospital stuff is to schools, so I called up some local architects that have done school work, and I've said, here's kind of the scope, whatever. What would you say would be reasonable fee ranges for this kind of work? And so it's kind of an informal survey, but I got some numbers back from them, some ranges there. Then there's some standards, industry metrics out there. RS Means is a group out there, organization that is used for cost data for estimating construction, as well as architectural fees based on percent of construction. So I went to that metric. So 3 kind of metrics there. And then fourth, in one of our meetings with Bob, Bob offered to go and poll some of his peers around the state who have done school construction jobs. And so do you have any records on fees versus construction costs? So with all that information back and looking at the comps, I got all kinds of tables there, but you don't want to see that kind of stuff. Doran Whittier's fee is definitely on the right-hand side of the bell curve. And quite frankly, it's about $100,000 more than, actually the highest fees were, of course, at the hospital. So it's actually, if I was doing that kind of work at the hospital, it would be $100,000 more than what I would expect. So there's a rub. So that's what we're going to be talking about with Doran Whittier tomorrow. I don't know what our approach should be, Tim. You know, our hands are kind of tied at this point because, I mean, if this is an RFP process, then you've got some kind of a competitive, you know, protocol to pursue, whereas this, they're already engaged. But I think we just have to talk seriously that, you know, we really are not understanding their fee based on all of these comps that you just can't argue with. And certainly, you know, from my perspective, I couldn't come to you and say, yeah, that's a reasonable fee and you should sign the contract. So hopefully we'll get some dialogue and see if we can get some discounts on that.
Great work on that.
So,
But I think just in full disclosure, though, they have come back on their side and really outlined, you know, they've looked at it on, you know, hours that they think it's gonna take, so.
Yeah.
I think will be some give and take tomorrow on that, so it's not like they pulled a number out of the.
no, I mean, they did a staffing plan,
Right.
but to
They
me,
did
that
the-
sort of means, well, maybe it's not a particularly efficient staffing plan. I don't know. All we have is comps to go by, so that's where that's at.
And they've certainly been good partners through the whole scoping process as well, much of which I'm sure they
Right.
weren't reimbursed for. So to that extent, you know, they've certainly provided value over and above what we paid them for. With that said, you know, it's all got to be proportional, obviously.
So, let me talk about the CM selection process next. We elected to go with a construction manager approach to this versus a general contractor, in that we wanted somebody on board before the design was done. Because if the design's done and then you get bids in that are over budget, well, that's not good. So by having a CM on board, one of their jobs will be to do cost estimates as the design is progressing. There's a couple of two very key milestones. One is schematic level design, one's design development design. And so it's actually written into Doran Whittier's contract that at those milestones, construction manager does a cost estimate. If it's good, then you're authorized to proceed to the next step. If not, then you have to redesign to bring it back into a budget at no additional cost to the school district. It's very important that we get this CM on board like lickety-split to provide those numbers. In fact, we've actually missed the timing for the schematic level design. So Doran Whittier has moved on to the next phase, I would say at their own risk, because that estimate hasn't been provided, nor has the school, to my knowledge, actually authorized proceeding to that phase. But with the CM selection process, we actually had a great idea at our last facilities management meeting. I actually invited another fellow to be on the board or the group with us, the committee. His name is Jim Sweeting. He works for Whiting Turner Construction Company, a very large construction company, and they're here working for the hospital on our new bed building expansion project. Very knowledgeable person, and he came up with the idea, well, you know what? These three CMs that are putting proposals in, which are PC Construction, Do, and Breadloaf, well, for them putting their proposals in, they got the drawings out there and they're figuring all this stuff out already. So why don't we ask them with their proposal to provide us those numbers? It's like, wow, that's a great idea. So those numbers won't be part of the selection criteria, because in a CM type environment, it's actually not based on, quote, cost of the project. It's based on their fees and their overhead and profit and general conditions kind of stuff. But February 23rd, when those are due, we'll get some schematic level estimates. And then once we pick the CM, those estimates will go to Doran Whittier, and the CM will work with them to make sure that's in alignment with our budgets. So that's why it's very important to get the CM on board as soon as we can. Proposals are due the 23rd, and facility committee meeting meets the next Monday on the 29th to select one to recommend to the board to hire.
And we'll meet on the 3rd.
To
To hear the
say-
recommendation
yes.
and make a decision.
That's right.
March 3rd?
Yeah, that was
That's
the adjustment.
Friday or Thursday?
That's Thursday,
Special meeting, right?
yeah.
Okay. I will be here on the 29th. I think I am not going to be here, unfortunately, the 3rd, but I can call in presumably. Yeah.
So it's all proceeding,
Okay.
perhaps a little bit behind schedule, but it's proceeding. And I think by the 3rd, we've got somebody on board. We will have, or, you know, if you approve on board, we'll have that schematic level estimate that they can begin immediately working with Doran Whittier to make sure that's dialed in with our budgets.
Right, I mean,
If not-
that's a huge addition, because obviously, you know, it's the impact of not having the CM. If you can get the numbers, that's the most important thing we're looking for in the
Yep.
short term, obviously,
Yep.
so.
So that's good.
That's great.
The other selection process that's at hand is selecting a project manager or an owner's project rep for this. And, you know, people have a lot of terms for those kind of people. They call it like clerk of the works, often you hear that, but we don't want a clerk of the works. I actually want a worrier. I want somebody to worry all the time. And this is, well, you're talking about being a ref for hockey. As far as I'm concerned, that's what we need. He's the ref between the construction manager and the architect, and he's representing us. And so he's the guy that's got to make sure they're working together, and we're always within budget, and we're getting what we asked for. So I think we're actually meeting tomorrow also on that, for that section of that person.
Where does scope differ between the CM and the PM? Those feel like overlapping bodies to me. Because isn't the CM hired by us to represent our interests as well?
The CM is part of his job is to represent us on the construction front, but you need somebody at a higher level to make sure all the people are dancing together correctly, and we never lose sight of what we want.
Yeah.
The construction manager, excuse me, when you get down to it, is, well, he's worried about getting the job done, getting out of there, making some money. Same with the architect. Whereas we have a school to build for the kids, and we're gonna have to live with it for a long time. So you want somebody that's right there, that's
Yeah.
us, one of us. We got probably like 10 applicants, I think, for that project manager. Several of them I have worked with, very well qualified, so once that person's on board and I can shift some of the worry to them, I'm gonna feel much better.
Great.
Believe.
It's also my understanding that, this has been explained to me, that the project manager is really Patty and I's buffer from the construction
Yeah.
company. You know, that we've got a school to run. You know,
Yeah.
and yet this construction is really going to interfere with the life of this school.
Huge way.
And it could become a full-time job just to manage the
Right.
construction, whereas we've got somebody who is in the school consistently. We can say, this isn't working, I need you to solve this.
Yep.
That's,
we hear
that's
this
the
is
daily
coming.
go-to person.
Yeah,
Yep.
so.
I gotta believe that the construction management and the architects are gonna be like this, and it takes a PM to move the project
Yeah,
forward. You gotta break
it does.
the deadlock. It's the only way to make it happen.
Yep.
Yeah, it's certainly not a world that Patty and I have. I mean, every meeting I get educated, you know, it's just like, whoa, okay, yeah, tell me about this, tell me about that. Yeah, so I'm excited to be able to have that person who's, okay, here's what we need to do, and, you know, can kind of translate.
You gotta keep it on schedule, because if.
Right.
you know,
Time's money.
mhm.
Yep. And so the other thing I just want to bring up was a couple of issues, one of which I've actually, touched on, and that is just where we are in the schedule, and we're behind on having that schematic level design estimate, so there's a little bit of risk there, but to some extent, it's it's not on the school. We didn't authorize moving to the next phase. Durham Whittier is working on that on their own, although they have held up on some pieces. Because in the schematic level design, they actually have listed out some options that the CM was going to price, and that would help them figure out what direction to go, but they can't. The other one that, when we were doing the estimate, excuse me, I'm not used to talking this much. When we were doing the estimate back in the summer, we had an allowance for displacements, getting people out of the C and the D wing while we're doing the construction. And that was based on the space being temporary, where they were moving to. I think at the last meeting, I noticed that some of the displacement space appears to be becoming more permanent space. I haven't dug into it to see what the extent of renovations are in there, but it seemed to be a little bit on the edge as far as, didn't really estimate it that way, but that's okay. It's an issue that's there. And when we sit down and look at the costs at these early estimates, we'll have to look at that and see how we're doing with that. And that's that.
Probably good lead-in, because I can show some of those
Yeah.
placements too. Yeah.
No, I just want to make one comment, just, this committee is with David and now with Jim Sweeney, and, there's really a wealth of knowledge that is gonna, add to the success of this project, and we're lucky to have these guys with this skill level donating a lot of time. Just look through that AIA contract, and
You're at my level, Tim.
it's definitely above our pay grade, so thank you,
No.
David, for you,
Yeah,
and
you're welcome.
I couldn't agree more, well said.
All right, so what I want to share with you is, where we're at in terms of design. So this would be, here's our wings, and know that we've gone through, what you're seeing is the outcome of 3 months of back and forth between facilities committee, faculty, leadership team, some significant back and forth, because what you're seeing here is, concept 4 really, as we've gone back and forth and said, what are the needs of the facility? So you can imagine the old wing, which had a corridor here, and just lines up the middle. What we're talking about creating are pods of 4 classrooms that truly are 21st century in their design and supporting the education that we're trying to do. So what you see around the edge here are 4 classrooms centered around the learning commons, okay, with a central project area space. And the flooring kind of represents, here's the space where you can be messy and work. They're designed in a way that, yes, they're going to work for middle school now, but they're also designed that you might look and say, boy, that's similar to the Kivas in some ways, very much so. With the exception that this space here has incredible flexibility that the Kivas really locked in terms of what it can do. So that's kind of the basic design. The furniture is all just simply to kind of give scale and things. In these spaces here, kind of off this hallway, you've got conference room space, you've got those small group working spaces, you've got bathrooms in each section, you've got a special ed office here, and then in the end of the wings, a couple more toilets, some storage and electrical kind of there. That's kind of where the design kind of worked out. There is a common connection here between, but there's also kind of separation so that you could connect these rooms. And even if necessary, let's say we needed a pod of 5, it would be a relatively simple thing to move a door down, integrate this classroom into this pod, and actually use this in 4 classrooms that way. So thinking about, okay, long term, yes, 4 seems to be our model, but occasionally we find ourselves needing 5. So could it even function that way?
See, that's a fairly, not a radical departure from the earlier design, but it is, the hallway certainly moves. I like it.
It's radical in the sense if you looked and expected a central corridor.
Right, yeah,
Yes.
exactly, no. But yeah,
Which is-
definitely, yeah.
But in terms of groups of 4, flexible spaces.
Well, I think I like it better.
And
but-
maximizing the space.
Yeah, no, very nice.
Yeah. So that's just kind of an overhead schematic that kind of shows you the same thing, how those could be arranged.
And the one thing we talked about, with the earlier design was a common group meeting space, so that central area becomes a common group meeting space.
Right.
If, to have sort of team, whatever.
Team meeting, yeah, in fact, I can, here's just kind of looking at that other wing, very similar.
Neat, great.
And then you can look at, okay, here's this common space, just showing furniture, but could be rearranged to something, it's big enough that you could pull 80 in there, which teams want to do. So you've got that common flexibility. Explored lots of different ideas in the midst of this, how to create that space. And really looking at the flexibility, do we want to do whole group instruction, do we want small group instruction, back and forth, project-based? A lot of things we're looking at now are what are the visibilities that we want out to this space so it becomes flexible, so that maybe Bob and I are in this classroom, but we want to go out there and work on our project, and it's still part of the classroom, so to speak. So what are the visibilities that would allow that to happen? And still keep teaching wall space, which is really important. We use these walls quite a bit. So it's that balance of glass and balance of access.
Could you go back 2 slides?
Yeah.
Keep going, one more, the one, top down, okay. So this is the other,
So this would be the other end.
okay.
So what you end up with this configuration, one thing I would point out that was a compromise was this classroom here ends up without an exterior window. So window, window, window. This is interior, this is kind of the library would be right there. So looking at skylights into that classroom in order to keep the configuration wrapped that way. Then you got light all the way down this hallway.
It's kind of the same with the lower left
Same,
as well, right?
it really is. This one would be adding a window here. In this, there's not currently a window right there. This is actually, let's say this was the B wing. This would be the kindergarten bathroom right here. And so it would be removing that, getting a window in there.
So in the lower right side of that that's the existing exit door that
That's the
comes out
existing exit
from
door that we would
Treehouse.
maintain. Yeah.
You still you're gonna change all those external doors and everything, that's the plan?
Right, it gets
Okay.
planned. This will remain an exit mostly for cost because we can replace the doors rather than breaking it off and doing all that. Also would be an egress that this group could use. So the decision was keep it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Is there a code in terms of exits and, access and all that?
All kinds of code that they've run the modeling
It
through.
all,
Yeah,
it all,
all matches up.
great.
Alan, did we lose those exits that were kind of mid-corridor? I thought there were some that were added kind of on.
No, they're right there. There was some talk of some exits here
Yeah.
at one time.
That's
That
good.
really the teams, and that was a lot of Dave Kelly conversation. He's like, okay, the minute you make that, okay, now you've got to maintain that, you got to clear the snow there. Are you really going to attract people, and are you really going to put a pad in there when you've got exits fairly close that could access that same space if you wanted to? Is it worth the time and the expense? And the decision was no. And we're already at some of those compromises saying that's an expense that really doesn't add. It would be nice, but it's gone. So.
I just wonder with that one walled off classroom, whether it's possible, to have a window at least pointing out into the hall to get that bit of natural light.
Yeah.
Because it does become
Right.
a bit of a
Cave-ish.
bummer, but,
Yeah.
Well, he said skylights.
Skylights.
Yeah. Hey, some of
Which
us-
gives the nice space, and we have that in the library. Although Dave Kelly's not a fan of skylights, he'll quickly tell you there's lots of reasons he doesn't like
There's a
them.
hole in the roof with
Yeah.
heating and all that stuff.
Oh. So other pieces that we wanted to show you, moving through there, okay, I don't think you care about cubbies, but we thought about them because we need cubbies and lockers. They've studied that and kind of talked with students who have been involved in this design in terms of helping us what works, what doesn't.
Are these all in the budget, like the cubbies and the furniture and all that, it's all baked in?
Well, furniture, we put an allowance in there and.
About 150K is what's
150K,
sitting there.
something like
If you
that,
think
yeah.
that's sufficient to do everything high scale? No.
Right.
No, but. So going this way. So this is kind of the transition plan that will get us here. And so this is some of what Dave was talking about, where as we've looked at it, knowing that, you know, as we bounce ahead, because this was, oh, I don't know, go and escape and kind of show it to you this way, because I've got some slides that. So, you know, in terms of moving, we've made the decision, we can do this project without bringing in portable classrooms, which are just kind of like throwing away money. You put in the portable classroom, and then you haul it away when you're done. But it requires finding space for an entire wing so that we can have those students who still have education next fall. So in order to do that, we're looking at turning classroom space, taking the library and turning a couple classrooms there, and taking some existing space here and turning these into classrooms. And the conversation's been, yeah, we know we've got to do it for a year, but if it accomplishes some end means that would really make the school better, let's look at this permanently rather than just walls that we put up and tear down. And so, that's where we're at with that, is, if I go back a slide, is the work that we'll be doing this summer is constructing 2 classrooms that in the temporary will not be foreign language classrooms. Foreign language classrooms, French and Spanish, will be what we call cart teachers. And if you've been in education, know that's the beauty of my classrooms on this cart. They go from room to room for a year. Far less than ideal. Ultimately, we'd see these as they would be positioned there a year from now. So those would be world language classrooms.
In the library space?
In that space, correct.
I'm just thinking foreign languages, I mean, there's a lot of talking.
Yep.
Loud talking and
Right.
that sort of doesn't work with a library as far as I always got in trouble.
With
for
existing
talking in the library.
wall, door access there.
Soundproofing, okay.
Right. So this would become book walls. So
Okay.
that's some of the thing that Dave's talking about, saying, oh, well, I thought those were temporary. Obviously more expensive to do this permanently floor to ceiling so that there's a sound buffer. But Dora Whitter's been working on that, on getting these designs. It means, in terms of what we do in these spaces, we've got to ask ourselves questions, well, if there's old carpet in these spaces. If you're doing a permanent, aren't you going to replace the flooring? So we're going to be talking about, okay, we've got, you know, what is our capital budget that we set aside for us as a school district that may have to supplement some of the unbudgeted expenses? Because obviously Dora Whitter did not plan to do work here. Same thing in these spaces. This is an existing 2 classrooms. So changing some walls here. This is our sped suite, putting some walls here. And then the group that we first want to relocate is get our 5 kindergarten classrooms into a common wing. And then we come away with this classroom that we'd have to use to relocate a middle school. When it's said and done, it could be our literacy or our math center. Again, centrally located. So it gets our kindergartners closest to their UAs, closest to the cafeteria, the gym. Right now, one of our big problems is those kids moving, and we've got even issues with kids without having closed doors for them. So looking at these as being not temporary classrooms, but a permanent solution that the kindergarten teachers that we talked to, they're like, this would be great. We would love to be next to each other. We could share resources, we could share, that would be a way to do it. So this is kind of looking where we'd like to be a year from now with 2 brand new wings as well. So, is that kind of what we talked about in terms of the permanent zone?
The concept scope, I mean, it sounds like a great concept, but again, the worry there is, if you just look, say, at the foreign language rooms, there are costs there, and some of the more expensive ones are not just walls. It's okay, now I got 2 separate rooms, so I not have now 2 separate lighting systems, and your heating, cooling is also different in that space, and it kind of cascades. So one of the things I'd want to see is, once that CM's on board, so tell me what that is. Because we had $100,000 allocated for that. So let's take a look at that piece, as well as all the others, because there are, potentially some savings. I think we had some good allowances in there for hazardous materials, which we found, or we think, are not the case, as I understand. So maybe there's some savings there. I don't know, but it's.
What about the library resources that are in the back left of that room? As in, that's a library instructional space and.
Yep, as we've looked at that, we've got Carrie on board in terms of looking at redesigns of that space and even these spaces back here that are relatively underutilized. And Carrie has been one that has been talking for years about wanting to, one of the big challenges is everything is static in this space. So can we get this to be a more flexible space? Because this is a computer lab right now, and already on the plans was to remove computer labs because this computer lab right here gets used about an hour a week.
And I know from the original plan that you talked for many, many months about turning that computer lab into a
Right.
temporary classroom.
Yeah.
And I would be super attentive to how you use that space and, you know, separate from the cost issue,
Yeah.
but,
Attentive to the needs of that space. It's a hub of
Yeah.
the school. Right.
I mean, it's just hearsay, but when I hear an architect saying that he designed a school where they got rid of all the books,
Yeah.
I wanna make sure that
That
folks
is
who
not
teach
in the
library
plan.
science,
Yeah,
don't think that's what's gonna happen.
that is not what's gonna happen.
Okay.
Yeah, but conversations that are happening and Carrie is in the middle of this design.
Okay.
No, it's me to say what, all we need to know. But we are, you know, at the end of the day, we're probably taking,
We are
we're
taking
probably
space.
25% of the overall library space.
Mhm.
But, you know, again, it's a changed universe out there, so.
So this is just the plan.
Little kids read books.
I know, I agree entirely.
And they love going down to the
library,
library,
yeah.
and they fight over who gets to bring books
I
back at
totally
the end of the
concur.
week, so.
It's not
yeah.
my, it's, I
But
have
at
my
one time, that was
reservations.
not library anyway, that whole big space was an auditorium.
Yeah.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a predate. So this design, you know, the other thing we've been very hesitant about, I get teachers asking every day, when am I gonna move, where am I gonna move, how am I gonna move, what space am I going to? You know, we keep saying, you know what, until we get a construction management firm on board, until we get cost estimates vetted, until we get that, this is all conceptual, and it could be blown apart the minute we get a cost estimate, a customer manager that says, you can't do that. Yeah, that's not even feasible. So we're walking that road, although they've seen it, but the idea being that we would relocate into these spaces. So we would evacuate this entire wing and these spaces. It will make a very crowded middle school wing. This would be middle school here plus middle school here. Okay, with world language on carts, relocating our literacy, relocating our ELL. So all things kind of get relocated, but we do have spaces for everybody for that first, basically, this would be the work that would be done this summer. Then the hope is in 4 months that this could be completed. Again, that's a construction manager coming in and saying, you can't do that work in 4 months. We'll wait and see. The next buffer would be, okay, we wouldn't maybe move at the holiday break, maybe it's at February break that this gets done. Get ourselves 6 months reasonable to get that. Because what would have to happen next would be these folks here move into up here, some compromising being made in terms of we would not have this space, somebody would be teaching in this space here. To have enough space, we'd be packed in there, but that opens up this to be finished. That space gets finished. And then interestingly enough, when we relocate everything, literally we've got ourselves a design where a first and second classroom, because we only need 3 middle school wings, we have world language. It does open up the possibility down the road, which we think is really important, that this modular classroom may be extra space. We certainly would use it, but if down the road, you know, it probably doesn't have a 40-year lifespan, there's the ability with our current population that we could be compacted in here or find another use for this, such as the after-school program. IAS would love to be located out here and let that be Tripoli and IAS.
Or the
Yeah, their own space.
220 families that are moving into Quiniesca.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Say what?
The development
Quinnies
there.
Quinnies
Or
is becoming a
as- yeah,
9-hole
that's
Or Tim
golf
said-
course, but
Yeah,
that's becoming.
Tim had something I'm not gonna,
Really?
he
You're not
can
gonna say
say,
it out
he
loud.
can say it louder. So when you, am I correct in, when did you move the all 5
So-
kindergarten classes out to the,
Very first move this summer. That's been one of our goals, is that we do not move Ks in the middle of the year.
okay, so essentially, what happens, isn't half of the kindergarten down in the trailers right now?
No. Kindergarten, half of them are here in 2 classrooms and the other 3 are here.
Oh, and that's not first and
And
second?
this is now first and second out here, this becomes a first and second pod here.
Okay, got it. I forgot the kindergarten already moved.
Yeah. But that definitely was one thing we have done, everything to avoid is a mid-year kindergarten move.
Yeah.
So, keeping them in one solid spot for the entire year, which makes this construction really important. Okay, so, you're up to speed on the current thinking at least.
And then I don't know, what are the chances of the roof getting started this summer?
Again, I think that's a discussion with the CM. I
That's
think
what
there
I keep being
could
told,
be
is
some
that's a
opportunities for
CM
that.
decision, that you could potentially phase it. You know, but there may be cost benefits to saying, waiting and doing it all in one construction season rather than taking it a piece at a time.
Yeah, you certainly wouldn't want a leaky roof on the new construction, but, but, yeah, and I imagine there's significant economies of doing it all at once.
Right.
But,
Is there a reason to do it in summer versus winter?
Yes, I
I
mean,
don't think you can do it in winter.
absolutely, and, you know, at first I was, I was going over the architect's contract, I was looking at actually making the roof a package to get out early,
Just get it done.
but then you run into coordination problems with, if you're working on the D-wing and putting air handlers up on the
Right, you got a
roof,
big mechanical move here and here.
you really want to coordinate that with the new roof, so I think we'll leave that to the CM to talk to us about how the best way is to phase that.
Didn't you have the facilities as a link on the community school website? Did that
Sure, we do. Let me go look at my
Did that-
computer rather than, yeah.
get taken off?
I don't think so, Bob. But
One question I had when we were talking about the architect fee and cost, do you have a mechanism that ties cost to scope so that they get credit for work they're doing and they can't rob cost from other portions of the work packages to pay for other portions? Like, do you have EVM for construction, or
I'm not sure what you're,
when you divide everything up into smaller work packages to manage the cost of the project?
yeah,
Who controls, like when you're done with the scope there and you have budget left over, or if you've gone over budget, how do you manage that, say you have money left over? Do you?
at the end of the project and it's left over? You mean construction-wise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that something where they're not given discretion to then spend that elsewhere without?
No.
Okay. Do you understand what I'm?
I think so, yeah. I mean, if you end up at the end of the project and you're below budget, which is,
Rare.
It's the goal.
that's the goal.
Yeah.
You're below budget and there's dollars left over, and so that's dollars for,
But you have granularity to get down into each of the individual work packages, even if it's like one wing and, construction of one wing, electrical of one wing, plumbing of one wing. You can track the cost that goes into each individual
yeah,
portion down to the amount of detail that you want.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep. That's a good thing to have. I didn't know if you were getting at architectural fee based on like type of scope, and that's kind of like why you have that range
Yeah.
where you'd expect to see the fees. For this analysis, I actually did break it into, for my analysis, into 2 pieces. Fee for, the D and the E wing proper, and then a fee for the roofing, because an architectural fee for roofing is a lot less
Yeah.
than, the D and the E wing.
Could I keep this to
Sure.
read over?
Yep.
And if somebody else wants a copy, you can
Yeah.
send it off to
Yeah.
me.
So last question, I think you said this timing for CM, any guesstimates if you were a betting man?
For selection,
Yeah.
the packages come in on the 23rd. The committee will
Meet on the
review on the 29th
Yep.
and select one to recommend to the board. And then
meeting
the
that
third, the
Thursday,
board
yeah.
will be presented and the board, glad either yes, no.
Good, great.
Are the project managers independent entities, or where do they come from?
Typically, most of them are. Some are, one-man shops. There's a few that have made proposals that, they're companies and have 3 or 4 project managers that have, kind of loosely affiliated or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, and, I think there's some in there, I don't know, just anecdotally that I haven't worked with them, and oftentimes you get folks that, well, I renovated my kitchen, so I can be a project manager now, so,
Yeah, that's good. Good. Well, once again, needless to say, thanks a lot for all your work on this. It's extremely lucky to have you.
You're meeting tomorrow with Dora Whittier?
we are, yes.
Good luck with that.
Would you like to join us?
I don't think I have the time. Wish you luck.
Yes.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, thank you.
So, 8:30. Time check.
Right on schedule.
Yeah, that's right. So- Motion to adjourn, yeah. So just principals report?
School's still standing, doing well. Would you
Yeah.
like to move on to the next item?
We
You just gave us a long principal report, I think.
Yeah, there you go.
Pretty thorough.
Yeah, some good stuff in there, but
Yeah, we all read it.
I figured you did. Thank you. You don't need me to read it to you, huh?
Good stuff.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, I was just looking at the numbers in, enrollment numbers in context of getting ready for town meeting day and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And it's interesting, there's like no pattern
I know.
in where these 20 students have come from, since last spring. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's across the board.
Which
Yeah.
number gets used in the ADM for,
Most importantly.
for the per pupil?
I believe that's our October numbers
it
when we lock
October?
it down, so that's.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that's good, because
Good, that's the highest one, yeah.
Absolutely.
Good.
We encourage them to stay,
I'm sure Patty keeps that in mind when she tracks all
when she
these.
processes the.
Yep.
CSSU debrief. Of note, Gene Jensen is leaving the board, and so
Well, really, that's a
we need
bummer.
to find a new chair. And I noticed that Tim's been coming to the CSSU meetings regularly.
Just for the common topic.
Oh, okay, all right.
thought it was for the game.
Curious. I wrote down some of the things that were of interest. Pretty active legislative report.
Well, I think the result from that legislative session is, we don't know what our taxes are gonna be. We don't know how it's gonna sugar out. This is the first year that, and it's really because of that snafu with the Agency of Education. They gave the long HER.
Yeah, I guess you're saying like how will the statewide trend of how people cost out their education affect us? Because it didn't really affect how we did our budget, but you're saying, what if everyone else's budget is more expensive than they anticipated?
Because it's gonna affect the yield. I mean, we don't know what the yield is ultimately gonna be because, we don't know what the revenue is gonna be from the penalties for the AGP.
Yeah.
That's a critical number. And this is really the first year we've had a yield-driven
Yeah.
tax calculation.
I did run through the numbers with Bob, and did we actually come out really close to the AGP number on cost per pupil?
I think we're below it.
I
Yeah,
thought we were a
Yeah.
little bit
Well,
below.
No, I thought we were about 80 grand below it.
I haven't
Just
done, I haven't
asking
sat
him
with
the
Bob
wrong
since,
question.
so.
Okay.
Okay.
But,
It
Yeah, we'll
got
have to review that
adjusted
to get ready for
twice, I
town
think.
meeting anyways.
Right.
We'll we'll review that to get ready for town meeting, because I know he's updating those slides, so.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of the extensive conversation we're having around at the very end, where the numbers did ultimately get adjusted, and again, I know there's some back and forth there, so we'll wait for our final. But it seemed like we were either just under or 88 or so grand below.
Yeah, and that's what I thought too, but the number I got yesterday was a little different, so. It did say I'm generating the budget flyer, and I'm not gonna print it. I'm going to have it published on the school website, the Shelburne News blog, distributed in Front Porch Forum, and then to Matt Wormser's circle of friends on email.
So
And
what's the reason for not printing it?
It's, you know, it's about $1,000 all in with printing, shipping, and production costs. So, and you ship it down to New Hampshire in a truck, and then it gets put in the paper, and the paper gets sent back up here. So, just a way to save some money. So,
But I mean, I think we need to remember the reason for doing that is to help facilitate a positive outcome on the budget.
yeah.
So I know it potentially is $1,000, but if the budget doesn't fly, that
Is CDU gonna-
$1,000 is well spent.
CVU usually does one.
Yeah.
Are we gonna, I
I
mean,
believe I heard they were going to do away with printing this year too.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't quote me, but I think I heard.
I mean, it would look bad if
Yeah.
they had one and we didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I think so much is going electronic these days, as long as we explain it very clearly.
Well, you're still gonna do the flyer, you're just not gonna print it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So basically what you're saying is you don't think it provides a big enough impact in terms of turning voters that it's not worth the
No.
investment?
I think, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I think the flyer is important, and it's important to get it out to people, into people's hands. I'm just not convinced that the
Inserting.
people don't reach with a piece of paper are enough to justify printing all the paper. So I think we can reach a majority of folks electronically. So, because no one's sent me a piece of paper about the railroad, and I know an awful lot about it.
I mean, I think there are going to be people with limited computer abilities, but I would agree with you that the vast majority of people, I think as long as we justify it, that,
Damn,
as
forgot
long as-
about that one, because
as long as we justify it, then I think that, explain, hey, blah, 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 that it will fly, but.
But you don't have the piece that violates executive, oh, there it is, there it is. Here we go, apparently this violates executive session, right there. So,
But we digress.
so,
We digress.
those were items that were only supposed to have been discussed in executive session, and the railroad printed them out and gave them to everybody at the meeting.
I know because I think we printed them at school for the last few years. If there were any specific areas that you wanted to distribute them to, that you felt, we could certainly do that.
Put a stack at the town offices, because there's gonna be some people who say, I don't have a computer at home. And if we could put a flyer in there to say, here's the reason we're not doing it, if you want a copy, go to the town offices.
I think that there's gonna be, if we change the degree of transparency, which we have, scrupulously adhered to in the past, we're gonna have, there may be some people that get troubled, and we're gonna be asking them to vote on an Act 46 governance issue in May. And if we tick some people off, it could, there's a lot at stake here, and I don't know, I mean, we want to be very careful about how, how we adhere to what we've done in the past. We don't want them to think that we're changing our
Rules in midstream, just for.
our model.
Yeah.
So, no one needs to talk to me about pissing people off. But I really think that, we've had a couple budget forums, we've talked to people, we've given people opportunities to talk. I've had lots of emails from people asking me questions, and I think that we can get a majority of people electronically and save some paper. I don't think it's not an attempt to not be transparent. I'll be clear about that.
Right, no, and I don't think Bob's saying that. I think that the question is the perception there. As long as we're, I think, effective in spamming every electronic form there is, because I think the thing you start out is, at the end of the day, look, we're trying to save money, and we're also trying to communicate in a way that most people are receiving their information these days. And from my standpoint, getting something electronically is infinitely preferable to getting a stack of paper, just because it ends up on top of the microwave and then hits the recycling before I ever have a chance to read it.
And it'll be in the same format, and everyone will recognize it. So.
You gonna put it as an attachment on Front Porch Forum too?
Yeah. So it'll be
That might
hopefully
accomplish the same.
And is
Yeah.
it something they can print out themselves?
Yeah.
Okay, and it'll look exactly like,
If there's a link to it there, I think
that's
that-
good, that's good.
And it would be, I'm hoping it would be a link on the school website that they can just click on.
And tell them how much they'll save, by how much we're saving.
Yeah, and that, during the bond vote, somebody was like, Dave, how come you're not advertising in the paper? And I was like, that's because it's $250 per week for an eighth of a page or something like that. And people are like, really? I thought you got that for free. I was like, nobody gets anything for free. So, so that's the goal. When I've been managing this for the last 3 years, and I've been amazed at how much money was spent. So, just trying to save some money.
You could take advantage of free advertising on the board corner if you wanted one before the vote comes up.
That's a good idea, yeah. Let everybody know that.
And just include a little paragraph, here's why we chose not to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just an idea.
That's a bad idea because it's 2 weeks to the vote.
Supposed to make rights before Monday.
So we'll go on to 5.3, second quarter financial management report. And you, like you had said, if we project to use 165,000 of the fund balance, we're still only at about.
We're only use 23 of the 165.
Yeah.
So.
Right. So we're coming out ahead of plan, which is good.
Yep.
And nothing, I just looked through, and it's not like, there's nothing glaring. It's like a little things here and there.
Right.
So it looked
Our
good to
usual
me.
little shifts, yeah.
We had the facilities update, the Act 46 committee, the study committee's report, the articles and the narrative. It's in draft form. I think it's now, as Colleen said, is with the legal team who are reviewing the legal language. I think the last one I got, I sent on to you folks, if you guys need that, if you want to, if you don't have it, just let me know. Some of the things that a recent meeting we talked about is timelines and when we might vote, and I think it heard if the timeline goes according to plan, we'll get okay. A potential plan is to send it to the Board of Education, get approval on April 19th, and then have a vote on May 24th. One of my plans that I had in the last meeting is to, as part of the Act 46 outreach, is sometime in March, late March, go and give a presentation at the Select Board for Act 46. See if possibly we could get on their agenda to do a short presentation, and then that's televised to a different audience. We're able to describe it to new members of the community, things like that. It's a different forum to try and capture folks.
I talked to Kim Schmidt, is that?
Yeah.
Because she's on the communications committee, and I said, I really think that we need to start talking about CSSU and get that front of mind, because I think that there's a lot of confusion about CSSU's role, always has been. And, I mean, people understand Shelburne Community School, they understand CVU, but, you know, unless you're involved in it, as we are, a lot of people don't understand CSSU.
Yeah.
And what we're gonna be asking them to do is to, you know, that we're gonna be telling the community that we think that there's an advantage to having CSSU manage the whole thing. I mean, the governance, the change in governance is gonna be a board for CSSU now. And that's gonna be I mean, I think we really need to get the
So-
community out front and understanding the
Yeah.
value that CSSU delivers to the Shelburne Community School and the Shelburne community. Because
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people
So
understand that.
I think that one of the ways to get over the unifying factor of what's going to happen when Charlotte and Shelburne and Heinsberg are all unified from a K-8 perspective. One thing you can say is that 30% of all of our residents already work in a unified school, and they work pretty well as CVU.
At CVU.
You know, nobody talks about Shelburne's investment in CVU so much, right?
Right.
And investment's the wrong word, but, you know, that's the model that we're trying to bring in
Exactly.
for K-8.
Right.
And it's working pretty well for CVU. And it's about having the same central staff at CVU, at CSSU.
I think.
But then,
You're absolutely right, but my point is that we need to get that
Yeah.
message out early.
Yeah.
And, you know, talk about it early and often and you know, just reinforce, because, you know, when I put that letter, when I stood down from the CSSU board, to let you and Russ serve on it together, I put that letter in the Shelburne News to explain what CSSU does for us as a community. And and you said it was a pretty good explanation. The only 5 people who talked to me about this said, "Oh, you're leaving the Shelburne School Board." I mean, they didn't understand, they had no idea. And one of the people, actually, who came up to me in the Shelburne Market, had served on the Shelburne School Board with me.
yeah.
And I don't know, maybe it was too long, but she didn't get it.
But I mean, I think there's been a lot of discussion at the Act 46 committee about, you know, what the role of the study committee is, and there's some pretty strong opinions that the study committee's role is not to go out and publicize this and sell this to the member towns. And there's also, I think, a hesitancy at this point because the committee has not had a formal vote that this is our recommendation
Okay.
to consolidate. So I think what you're gonna see, we're gonna have that vote. And if it comes out as a positive vote supporting consolidation, then I think you're gonna see a little bit of a rework on the study committee and have that morph into more of a communication committee where they wanna pull some people in from either member boards or outside citizens to go start beating the drum on what the benefits of consolidation are to the member towns and the member students. So I just think we're not quite there yet, but there's been a lot of discussions. But there is a little bit of a disconnect, I think, with some of the members of the study committee that they do not feel that they signed up to go out and be advocates and beat the drum.
Understandable. I think, you know, so Kim and company had that article in the paper.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Kim Schmidt is on the CVU Communications Committee.
Right.
And she's not on the Communications Committee for the Act 46 Committee.
Right.
Well, there
And
is a
we're not gonna
CSS,
sit here and
but there's-
talk about that article because it was so poorly written, we're not gonna give it the time of day. Okay.
I didn't think it was bad. All I'm saying, I would agree that I think there, just to echo Bob's point, you know, I think there is an appetite for understanding what's going on behind the scenes. And, whether it's a yay vote or a nay vote or anything, it's just, what, I agree that what's gonna happen is as soon as the committee votes, we really have about 2 months before we're expecting all the town to vote. And that's, I think, quick for a lot of people to be like, wait a minute, I get my local school and all that, so.
So in light of that, we are gonna talk to it at town meeting.
Okay.
There will
Good,
be
yeah.
slides at town meeting to talk about Act 46.
Well, I'm not even talking about Act 46. I think it's important for the people of the community to understand CSSU and what its role is. And as the analog with CVU is a good one, but CSSU's been here, it's been in business for 30 years or so, but so many people don't understand what it does. I mean, when Brian O'Regan ran the thing, a lot of people didn't know what he did, and a lot of people don't know Elaine. And
We can make, there are charts in there that show, in the Act 46 overview, that show the functions that are in CSSU.
Okay.
And I can spend some time making those charts clearer and explaining the functions of CSSU. And if I run those past you and you can comment on them,
Okay.
is there a chance that I could help tailor the presentation to answer your questions? I don't want to get into a conversation in a couple months where
No.
I find out you're not in favor of school consolidation when it's something I could have answered a question right now. That's what I'm just trying to probe.
I'm all for it. I want to
Okay.
see it succeed, but that's why I'm saying this.
Okay.
Is I'm just afraid that we're not, I mean, I don't want to suddenly, for the community to all of a sudden see that we're going to be giving up board control of, yeah, exactly. There's an undercurrent in the community, and we don't know what it is. But, I mean, there are going to be people come out of the woodwork and who are going to want local control. And, we need to preempt them. We need to get out in front of it so that people understand, like, the value that Megan and the special ed have provided for Shelburne Community School in leading the special ed and taking on that responsibility. That's resulted in measurable savings.
Yeah, right.
And it wouldn't hurt to use that as a lead, as get people's attention.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the cornerstones of the consolidation argument, especially for us, is that what's the percentage, Dave, that we've already consolidated? If you look at special ed, you look at busing, you look at all the things that are really already consolidated under CSSU, so we're kind of half pregnant right now. We just need to go all the way.
Yeah, it's over 50%, and I want to say it's
60,
70.
I think, 60 or
70%. And, yeah.
Yeah.
When you look at,
If you look at the dollars.
Special ed is the big chunk.
Yeah, right.
yeah. But even like curriculums are standardized at the top and taught differently in the schools, but they're guided from the top. And
I think, just to circle back on Bob's main point, this is a major change, and we need to make sure that people feel aware of what's going on, because otherwise the nature of being asked to make a major decision in a relatively short timeline is like, whoa, why the hell didn't you tell me about it before? And so that's, and I don't think.
it's a moderate shift in how we
I
would
totally
deliver
agree.
things.
I totally agree.
But it's being delivered by some,
Yeah.
no one in our circle, it's being delivered with a lot of hyperbole. And I think your point is right. Like if we do start the conversation at town meeting day with explaining, this is how this functions now, this is the organization here, this is what CSSU is, and Act 46 has asked us to look at this. And throughout this whole thing, a lot of people are like, why would we even bother changing if it's working so well? And you're like, well, because the law says so. And
There's
here,
a tax incentive.
there's a tax incentive, and here are all the benefits for the students in this
Yeah.
school district as well.
Increasingly crowded SCS, guess what? We've got a, school down the road that may be able to accommodate some additional bodies or whatever the additional conversations are,
By the time May 24th rolls around, several other communities will have voted on
Yeah.
consolidation. Several are up on town meeting day.
Oh, is that right?
So that'll be part of the landscape as well.
Yeah.
And so far, all the votes have been positive this year, so
Oh,
far.
good.
This school year,
This school year. School year.
not the last 1 month and
Yeah.
16 days.
All
Awesome.
All right, still,
That's a good suggestion, Bob. I'll make sure I add some more emphasis to those slides. And there's also gonna be a little blurb in the flyer about Act 46.
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right, so we move on to discussion matters. 6.1, policy, bus discipline and transportation. Does anyone have any issues with those?
they were pretty
I'm all for
straightforward.
Okay.
Straightforward discussions during the policy.
Okay. 6.2, budget informational meeting preparation. So I have the initial slides from Bob. Working on those numbers. There was one chart in there that wasn't in there, which Bob and I talked about, is we know the select board likes to put education numbers on their town presentation. And there was one that somebody asked for, I think it was George Chavone who asked at the last meeting, who was like, where's the Shelburne, there was the list of tax rates for a town, by town, and then bar charts. And Shelburne's tax rate was over here. And then George was like, well, where's the school tax rate compare? So Bob went through and did that chart, and so it's over in the same spot, so it's good. So we're gonna put that in, and then do the same presentation that we've always done, with what the numbers are, what's enrollment projected to be, what's coming out of the budget, what's going into the budget, and things like that. And you're gonna take all the questions this year?
Yes,
Okay. And we go first.
via Skype.
We go first?
We go first this
Oh,
year.
great. I got a 5 a.m. flight to catch the next morning.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Board's corners. Could probably put a budget one in for next Thursday. So try and write that up and get it out to you guys this week. Action matters. Schedule a retreat date. Can I get a motion to approve our retreat date of May 26th? It's a Thursday.
How does that relate to Memorial Day?
Second. Can I get a second?
Thursday before Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Thursday before.
Yep.
You want a second?
I got a second.
All right.
Matt started discussing before we got the second. All right, so all's in favor of the 26th?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's our only action? Seriously? Thought there was more. All right, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Okay.
Discussion.
There's no discussion on the consent agenda. Don't try and trick me like that. That's the only trick I've known. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Confirming next meeting dates. Our town meeting is Leap Day, 7:30 PM at the gym. Had a nice dry run last week for the gym.
We understand the setup.
It's pretty good. And we have a March 3rd special meeting next week. That'll be Thursday. It's gonna be 5:30.
Want it at our school?
We can do it at the school. I think that's fine.
It's easiest.
Yeah. 5:30 at the school, and we'll tell you where it's gonna be. That's to approve the recommendation of the construction manager.
Yeah.
And then we'll reconvene in March with our new board.
So the only person up for reelection is Mr. Finn, right?
No, I'm up for
You're up.
reelection.
So you guys running unopposed, or?
We're running unopposed. We switched terms. I get the 3, he gets the 2.
No.
So I was worried you had somebody against you when you put that ad in the paper.
I know.
I figured I haven't spent, I usually spend some time in the Shelburne Supermarket, meeting and greeting people, but I haven't had time.
Mickey Mouse is running a heated campaign against him.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. And I don't think we have an executive session topic. You guys have already given your input on executive session, haven't you?
On superintendent?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, so I guess we'll go into executive session and we'll adjourn from that. So,
Right.
okay,
I won't hang around if that's okay.
that's fine.
All right. Thank you.
Let's
Because
have
I
to
had-
sign these before you do that.
Because, do you have any comments on,
No, I think,
you're fine? Do we even need to have an executive session? Superintendent evaluation?
Well, don't you need to bring it back to your,
You need to bring the information back for tomorrow's meeting? From,
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah.
think,
Is that what it is?
Colleen McKinnon sent around a survey.
Yeah,
Which
so
I-
oh, right,
everyone,
that's right, we did fill that out.
So,
Oh, so
I
it
mean,
needs to be said.
I don't understand what we have to talk about.
okay, that's what I was saying. You guys have done the survey, you're good. Thank you.
You need two on this, or just one?